Judith Weaver holds a PhD in Reichian psychology and was the creator and founding chair of the first doctoral program in somatic psychology, which was in Santa Barbara Graduate Institute. She taught at the California Institute of Integral Studies for 25 years and was a founding faculty at the Naropa Institute. She's certified in Reichian therapy, somatic experiencing, massage, biodynamic cranial sacral therapy, pre- perinatal therapy, and as a senior teacher of Tai Chi Chuan, Rosen method, and sensory awareness. It is a joy to have her to return to the conference, and thank you. You are on.
Thank you, Philip. Can you hear me well enough? Thank you, everyone. I'm honored to again present at this important conference. Am I coming through all right? Okay, thank you. When David first mentioned the title of the day, Prevention of Armoring, I said something like, we can't prevent it, and I don't think we should. And then 2 days ago, Daniel Schiff stated that we can't exist without armor. I agree with him. So I would like to change the theme, at least for my part of it. And for me, the theme would be how to handle armor and live with it to support our lives. I'm so glad to be asked to focus on gestation and infancy. Gestation being one of our most important times and is probably given the least focus and attention in our lives and society. There are crucial connections carried from gestation into life, infancy, childhood, and beyond. And I'm really thrilled to be able to talk to you about it. I want to begin by reading a short piece by Reich that I consider so pertinent and important that over the past more than 50 years of teaching, I've had all of my students in various courses read it. Well, not my Tai Chi students. The title is The Source of the Human No, spelled N-O. Most of you probably know it, and here it is again. When a child is born, it comes out of a warm uterus, 37 degrees centigrade into about 18 or 20 degrees centigrade. That's bad enough, the shock of birth, bad enough. But it could survive that if the following didn't happen. As it comes out, it is picked up by the legs and slapped on the buttocks. The first greeting is a slap. The next greeting, take it away from the mother, right? Take it away from the mother. I want you to listen here. It will sound incredible in 100 years. Take it away from the mother. The mother must not touch or see the baby. The baby has no contact after having had 9 months of body contact at a very high temperature, what we call the organotic body energy contact, the field action between them, the warmth and the heat. Then the Jews introduced something about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, and that is circumcision. I don't know why they introduced it. It's still a riddle. Take that poor penis, take a knife, right? And start cutting. And everybody says, it doesn't hurt. Everybody says, no, it doesn't hurt. Get it? That's an excuse, of course, a subterfuge. They say that the sheaths of the nerve are not yet developed. Therefore, the sensation in the nerves is not yet developed. Therefore, the child doesn't feel a thing. Now that's murder. Circumcision is one of the worst treatments of children. And what happens to them? You just look at them. They can't talk to you. They just cry. What they do is shrink. They contract, get away into the inside, away from that ugly world. I express it very crudely, but you understand what I mean. Now that's the greeting. Taking it away from the mother. Mother mustn't see it. 24 or 48 hours. Eat nothing, right? Penis cut. And then comes the worst. This poor child, poor infant, tries always to stretch out and to find some warmth, something to hold on to. It goes to the mother, puts its lips to the mother's nipple, and what happens? The nipple is cold, or doesn't erect, or the milk doesn't come, or the milk is bad. And that is quite general. That is not one case in 1,000. That is general. That's average. So what does that infant do? How does it respond to that? How does it have to respond to that bioenergetically? It can't come to you and tell you, oh, listen, I'm suffering so much, so much. It doesn't say no in words, you understand, but that is the emotional situation. And we orgonomists know it. We get it out of our patients. We get it out of their emotional structure, out of their behavior, not out of their words. Words can't express it. Here in the very beginning, the spite develops. Here, the no develops, the big no of humanity. And then you ask why the world is in a mess? Whew. This is the opening chapter of the book, Children of the Future. In 1952, Kurt Eisler of the Sigmund Freud Archives conducted a 2-day interview with Wilhelm Reich, of which this is just an excerpt. The whole printed version appears in the book Reich Speaks of Freud, which was published in 1967. In this whole interview, Reich describes what happens to the newborn child and what effect this experience has on the child's subsequent development. I also have a cassette recording that I purchased from the museum decades ago. It's a 12-minute audio, which is an excerpt of the 2-day interview. So there's more on it than what I've just read to you now. I've worn my cassette out, so I went on the museum website to purchase a new one. And it's now presented as a DVD, but unfortunately it's out of stock. I hope that it be restocked again. It is so interesting to hear Reich's own voice and his feelings coming out as he speaks. Even the 12-minute audio presents many more issues than this little 3.5-minute piece that I've just read to you now. So now to my topic, gestation and infancy. We know a lot more now about what and how fetuses or babies are experiencing, and we now have the opportunity and knowledge of how many influences that are coming from the outside violate the integrity and health of the child inside. Other presenters have already mentioned the importance of intrauterine life, and Marilena Comey quoted Vivette Glover regarding how the child is affected by the mother's stress during pregnancy. So a lot of people are now talking about this crucial situation. But do we really open up to the full situation of the prenates and neonates? Newborn babies can tell us their yes or no, but most adults don't ask for it. We don't listen to the babies or really want to understand what they're expressing. I think most adults think they know what needs to be done and they want to be able to fulfill their plans and understandings. It could be very different if we adults learn to respect infants, to treat them like human beings, treat them like we would like to be treated as adults and as children. If we would listen to them, to what they're saying and trying to express, we could talk to them. We could let them know what is happening, what is going to happen, and consider their response. They are trying to communicate with us. We just don't understand their language well enough. Let me give you one crucial example. It's the stress situation in the birthing process when the medical decision to have a C-section is made. Adults on the outside know why and when, but the baby usually does not get the news. It comes to them as a shock. Sometimes the prenate has been trying heroically to be born, to maneuver the processes that are necessary for birth to happen, and it might not be working as nature would have it. Or on the other side, sometimes they may not be ready to be born and not know anything about the emergencies that are being dealt with on the outside. Whatever it is, it would not take much time to speak out loud to the baby and let them know that things are going to change a lot, that it's going to be faster. Say that they're going to be helped to come out. Those few seconds of talk might make a big change in the consciousness of both the baby and the mother. And it might just support the changes needed, emergency or not. That's just one major crucial example of when and how civil communication can be used at times where the average adult would not think about it. I have loved working with pregnant mothers and help them prepare for their new life. Actually, my favorite time, but not often occurring, is when I've been able to work with a young woman or a couple, and I help them resolve some of their issues, and then to be able to support them when they want to conceive, and then continue as their doula or some support somehow. The main guidance I give to them is to consider that baby to be is a person. I suggest that they talk to the prenate. I help them create activities for during pregnancy that can be continued and connected after birthing: music, singing, reading, rhythm, movement. The other parent is also very important, and that parent making a relationship before birth creates another connection that can be continued and built upon and deepened after birth. I'm not a midwife. As a doula, I coach parents through different phases: preconception, pregnancy. I once worked with a couple where I was able to have been seeing the mother even before she got married, and I coached them during their conception journey and through pregnancy. And the father was an airplane pilot, and he was away a lot. So I suggested to the father that he tape talks or whatever, even reading a book, to be played every night when he was absent. When the birthing time came, it turned out to be a C-section. The mother was anesthetized, and the baby came out crying. The father said something, and the baby's head turned directly to him and immediately stopped crying. The baby had a connection right there. It was familiar and it was safe. Over the years, I'm told that the father and son's relationship continued in life deeply and intimate, and it might have had something to do with that prenatal connection. Talking to the prenate, talking to the newborn, talking to your baby, talking to them as if they are human beings, because they are. And they might really understand a lot more than we think they do. I recently met a 2-month-old, and the parents said that they had a beautiful relationship. Everything was fine, but one issue disturbed them: that this baby became frantically upset every evening at about the same time. And they didn't know what to do about it. So after talking with them, I learned that it was about the same time that drugs were given to the mother and the birth process changed and eventually progressed into an emergency C-section. Now, in a natural birth process, the baby's feet are in connection with the fundus, and babies push as part of their active process of being born. A C-section baby does not have that opportunity, or perhaps she was doing that and was taken away from her when the surgery took over and she was lifted out. I showed the parents how to touch her feet with their hands very lightly, and that baby immediately started pushing and actually locomoting from that push. I recommended that they make contact at her feet and let her push all she wanted. And the reports I get from them now is that she is much less upset at that evening time, and she loves pushing. Birthing in hospitals, where most births are taking place now, at least in most developed countries, the time during and immediately after birth is not necessarily a welcoming time. What Reich said was correct, and he didn't even know the many more invasive, painful procedures that today are now used on babies. He didn't mention the pricks on babies' heel when taking a blood test, or the drops in the eyes, because as the baby travels through the birth canal, they can pick up bacteria present in the vaginal secretions or fluids that's not needed in C-sections. Or just a baby moving too quickly, causing startle, etc. There are forceps, which are helpful and necessary sometimes, albeit unpleasant. And is there a way to introduce them? Perhaps just letting the baby know. And then the vacuum extraction machine, which is a suction cup put on the baby's cranium, which is incredibly painful. In one of the classes I took, there was the machine there, and I put it on my arm and turned it on, and it was so strong and so painful that I shudder, thinking what it does on a baby's soft, malleable cranium. And then there are still surgeries without anesthetic. Doctors are still saying the baby's nerves don't have feelings yet. Mother and baby bonding begins in the womb. The relationship has already begun from the beginning, and for some, even before then. I highly recommend speaking warmly and frequently to the baby in utero. And continue talking to the baby in that way after birth, having continuity by using the same words, same rituals as during pre-birth. It's so important. So let these newborns, let them know what's happening, what you're going to do. I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to change your diaper. It's time to feed you. I have seen many children startled and probably traumatized by the well-meaning adult putting a shirt or jacket over their head without any warning, or even picking them up too quickly. We all would like to know what is going to happen. And it's even more vulnerable, more pertinent for a vulnerable infant who doesn't have much say in what's happening except to cry. If they are included as one of the party, so to speak, I see the communications creating more ease and considerations going both ways. In the pre and perinatal birth field today, the precious time immediately after birth is called the sacred hour. Actually, it would be better to be 24 hours. Ideally, it's just a quiet time for mother and baby to just be together and not be disturbed. It promotes the precious experience of holding the baby right after birth, preferably skin to skin, not having to do anything. There's enough time for doing things later, but just being together on the outside after such a journey is very precious and very important. I don't know if you've heard of kangaroo care, but it's the name for involving skin-to-skin contact, mother and baby. It was an intervention developed to care for premature and low birth weight infants. And since 2003, the technique and intervention has been recommended by the World Health Organization as evidence-based care for low birth weight infants. And it's really a wonderful experience for all newborns and mothers. I recommend to all parents the sublime experience for them, as well as the infants, of holding their baby close to their chest, especially without anything in between their skin and the baby's, and humming, talking softly, or just breathing. Whatever, it will be fine. It's as close as the baby can get to their previous time in the womb. They're still hearing the mother's heartbeat, and it's a calm introduction to the outside smell of the mother and the rest of the world. It can be an exceptionally special experience and the next step for both participants. The depth of that peace and quiet is very precious and may not have the space to happen again or often once real life takes over. This experience can also be an important blessing and time for the non-birthing parent as well, just some downtime. We can only imagine, but really most of us have had the experience of maybe about 9 months of warmth and movement and fluid, and then the shock of the change being bright lights, air-conditioned coolness, hard plastic items, loud sounds. Well, we can all imagine that shock, or most of us probably don't have to imagine it. I'm guessing most of us have experienced it. Reich was so right. The reality is that if the child and mother experience a decent birth without drugs, and if they're not separated, even without the umbilical cord being cut or any other external activity having to take over, if the baby is placed on the mother's stomach, it will push against the mom's abdomen and will push up the mom's body towards her breast, find the nipple and latch on. Most babies are able to find the nipple and begin sucking and doing it all by themselves. This whole process is called the breast crawl. And again, the baby is already using their feet, legs, pushing. While this is happening, the baby can be dried and, if needed, even stimulated while on the mother's body. The stage of a baby being quietly alert is the first part of them exploring their new environment. After a period of relaxation and awakening, they safely can begin to find their own way and spontaneous behaviors begin. This is the beginning of the baby being able to do what is natural for them to do. This is the beginning of self-regulation, of the child developing many of their own senses, and we adults can learn so much from following their lead. And the senses do begin at the beginning. The sight, newborns love to look at faces. Eye contact is so important. The smell, newborns respond to the smell of their mother, and the breast area has a especially attractive sense to them. Taste, the amniotic fluid that they've been tasting in utero is similar to the first tastes of breast milk. Hearing, while in utero, the infant has heard sounds of the mother's heartbeat and voices, so they are familiar from the beginning. I was talking to a young new father who's just, he and his wife just had their second child. Their first child was 3 years old, and he said that it was so interesting. Every time that 3-year-old spoke, the infant just turned and looked at her. And I said, yeah, that 3-year-old was about the height of the mother's belly, of the baby in utero. So that baby, that prenate, probably heard more of his older sister's voice than anyone else's. And then there's touch, skin to skin touch, helps regulate a newborn's body temperature after what they've been through. The development of all of these points are allowing the baby to learn to respond and regulate himself. And also the baby is being allowed to follow its own desires and needs and abilities of the moment as early as possible. And it helps them to develop naturally and securely into the being that they can be. Have you noticed that by this process, the newborn, in a natural, easy, organic way, is activating its own segments, optical, the eye contact, oral, the sucking, cervical would probably be pushing and moving its head to latch onto the mother's breast, and the thoracic also. And the diaphragm with breathing, voice, crying. And I put the abdominal and pelvis, legs, all together in the pushing. So the newborn is already working and activating all of Reich's segments. In the 1970s, Edward Tronick did some baby and mother experiences called still face experiences. They wanted to learn from the study how a parent's reaction can impact the emotional development of a baby. And it started with the mother and the baby in a warm relationship. The baby was on a table and one of those sitting helping things, and the mother was right there. And at some point, the mother just turns away. And when she looks back, her face is non-responsive, dead. And the baby responds. The baby tries to talk with her. He tries to get her attention. He's trying to please mother, and there's no response. After a while, the baby cries, stiffens, eventually freezes. Personally, it was very painful for me to watch. Of course, at the end, the mother does become responsive again, and the baby eventually is soothed. But something has happened. I feel the usage of devices today is something like that and is damaging in so many natural connections. A while ago, I was in a train station waiting for someone, and there was a mother and a baby, maybe 6 months old, in a carriage. And those carriages are good. They're so that the baby can look and the mother's pushing it and there can be good contact. The carriage was not moving and the mother was on the phone. And the baby tried to connect with her mother. She moved, there were sounds, she cried, she became very, very frantic, and then she gave up and went very still. To me, it was a repeat of the still face experience, those experiments, but it was even worse because there was not even eye contact. The progressive deadening of the infant was very, very painful to me. For many years now, it's common for busy mothers to nurse while they're watching TV or talking on the phone, etc. So I'm told that the infant's distance for view, a newborn, is about 12 to 18 inches, which is perfect distance for the mother to be holding the baby and the baby to be nursing and them to have eye contact. Nursing is so crucial, but nursing without the mother's consciousness is losing the connection and the warmth and intimacy that is so possible to build from that experience. Another reason how eye blocks can begin so early. I want to mention here and honor Eva Reich, MD, whose main work was focusing on healthy birthing, home births, infant care, and baby butterfly massage. She called her work gentle bioenergetics, and she traveled 8 times around the world teaching and helping the population with her focus on better mothering and happier, healthier babies. I met Eva in 1984, and she was my mentor and close friend until her passing in 2008. In 1964, Dr. Morton Hershkowitz published a paper in which he wrote a lot of the things I've just said. And he wrote, "It appears that those who advocate separation of mother and newborn on grounds of rest and recovery from trauma are not in touch with the observable facts of newborn behavior." And he quotes Reich from Children of the Future when he says, "The structural distortions in the character of the parents, physicians, and educators are transmitted automatically to each newborn generation." And he ends the paper by saying, quote, "In recent centuries, we have learned how to keep our infants alive. Now we must learn and teach how to keep our infants not merely alive, but secure and vital. In the light of new knowledge, we cannot be content with old concepts and old limits. The problem is not merely to prevent psychiatric disorders as the children grow up. This, once again, is a mechanistic view. And enlightened pediatrics will dedicate itself to the preservation of the functions and potentialities of the child so that he shall not be bound by our limitations. End of quote. And then in 1996, Dr. Hershkowitz wrote a paper in the Journal of the Association for Prenatal and Perinatal Psychology and Health. It's more commonly called APPA, A-P-P-P-A-H. And its journal has constantly been published since 1986. APPA is another very important association with which I have worked for decades, and I presented many times at their conferences. In fact, Eva Reich was a presenter at the very first APPA conference in 1981 or 83. I don't remember the date, but I found the program of the conference at Eva's house when I was visiting once. In this paper, Dr. Hershkowitz states that Reich's earliest writing concerning problems of infancy was published in 1928. And he quotes Reich as saying, quote, "Organotic contact is the most essential, experiential, and emotional element in the interrelationship between mother and child, particularly prenatally and during the first days and weeks of life. We know little about it yet. Let us therefore explore it further." End of quote. Dr. Hershkowitz ended his article in the APPA Journal in 1996 with Reich's words, quote, "We cannot tell our children what kind of world they will or should build, but we can equip them with the kind of character structure and biological vigor which will enable them to make their own decisions, to find their own ways, to build their own future and that of their children in a rational manner." My wonderment and sadness is that even though some great and important scientists, psychologists, and teachers have known about the importance and difficulties in dealing with prenatal and neonatal issues, both with mother and babies, that the information has not spread very much or supported mothers and families better at all. Now, with the new devices and ways of working, and with AI coming on, we have a much more complicated and challenging path working with and teaching adults before and after birth. It's much more difficult now and even more important. When I have presented at APPA or so many other venues in which I'm able to address these issues, of course, the main focus is about connecting with the infants. But we also have to connect with the adults, because they're the ones in control and also are the major problem. And without realizing it at all, they can pass their armoring onto the child. In Reich's clinic in New York, the Organomic Infant Research Center, it had the focus of two things. One was prenatal care, and the second was birth and the first few days of the newborn's life. Reich said that if he was wanted to treat a baby, he needed to treat the mother also. And that's essential. As adults, we have come to know, that is, with our mind, while babies are experiencing in a deep, profound, immediate way that we don't recall as adults. They're experiencing their total being, and they don't necessarily understand with their brains like we try to. They sense. Everything begins with sensing. Our touch, our presence, our being is so important and also affects babies very deeply, profoundly. Our sensing, our somatic consciousness affects our adult lives also and our ways of being as well, but sometimes we don't pay much attention to it. The learning begins in the womb. It's clear to me that we need to assist the adults, the parents to be, the caregivers, whoever they are, so that they will be able to support themselves and pass the safe, desirable experiences onto the infants, prenatally and neonatally and on. So basically, if I'm not relaxed and feel safe, how am I going to be able to pass on a relaxed feeling of safety to the baby? It's more likely that I will pass on my armored habits and ways of responding to the world. Telling someone to relax does not do the job. How about helping someone feel themselves, and then perhaps they can know how to proceed? When the parents are pregnant, waiting for the child to be born, it's a good time to suggest some different possibilities for them, because their lives are going to be so different anyway. They just might be more open to try to do some things differently, to be different and to feel differently. So we do have to work with the adults in order to help the infants. And my guidance for parents include that they slow down. That's a hard one. How essential eye contact is, that face expressions matter a lot. Prosody, the tone of voice, is very important. And being honest with themselves and with baby about being present is essential. Can we admit that we are unhappy or jittery or whatever? Can we admit it to ourselves, and can we share it with the baby or even with the partner? We can talk to the adults, to the parents, to be about these things, but when there isn't much time in their lives, or they are tired, or they're so busy, they're not going to stop and remember and think about these issues, about what they've been told is best to do. I feel hopeful when I'm able to spend some time with the adults and help them just tune in and experience some of these issues. Sensing the experience can help adults to focus on their feelings of their own breathing, or the quality of their own touch, the timing of touch, the pressure of touch, and maybe sharing that experience with their partner could help. Paying attention to their own posture can help ease the tension of making contact and also of holding the baby later, getting to know their gestures, their pacing, their movements. Bringing these points up is best if it can be done in a quiet time before the birth, but if not, then whenever possible is fine. This all matters for all of us, but when you have a baby coming, it's crucial to pay attention to these aspects of being human and being with other humans, especially a new little human, and the potential for embracing something new might just be possible. Of all the points I've mentioned, the most I emphasize are communications. Communicating with a new little human being, for instance, after telling adults how important eye contact with the infants is, I have to acknowledge that it also can be very intense and awkward for them. We probably don't have time to work with or even mention eye block or anything like that, but suggesting how they may work with eye contact might help. Like just telling the baby, I'm going to look away. It might seem very extreme and awkward, but do you think it could help the baby? Telling them what is going to happen rather than just making a sudden change can give the infant a sense of connection with their world that does not happen when something occurs all of a sudden without any alert or something. And the adults saying it also helps them center and settle down. I have to leave the room. I'm going to put you down now. Help clarify things for the baby and the adults.
Judith, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
we are just about at the end of your allotted time.
Oh boy. Okay. I just want to say, yeah.
You have a few minutes left.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Only 2 or 3.
Okay. So the truth is that teaching adults this way of communicating can also help their relationship with other adults. So letting the little one knowing what's to happen can also help the adult know what can happen. And I just want to mention last conference, I mentioned the influence on Wilhelm Reich by Elsa Lindenberg, which came from Elsa Gindler. And now I want to mention another influence from Gindler, who came through Emmy Pickler, who is a Hungarian pediatrician. And her student, Magda Gerber, brought the work to the United States, and it's called RIE, Resources for Infant Educarers. And it's approach to caring for babies from birth to 2 years old. And it works with adults and their babies and helps them, the caregiver, focus on the relationship. And one of the questions on their webpage is, what would the world be like if every baby was raised in a secure relationship that centered trust and respect? How would that influence a child's life or yours? From the start, the neonate comes out with such possibility of flow and energy and natural potentialities. Maybe we can acknowledge and follow their lead and learn from them and support the movement and energies in life that they can teach us. And that's basically what I have to say. Thank you for warning me, David. I would have gone on forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judith. Thank you.